Welcome to Stroller Coaster, the podcast that takes you on the wild ride of parenting that we're all on together, created by Munchkin, the most loved baby lifestyle brand in the world. Munchkin knows you need all the help you can get. I'm right with you, which is why they make such great products and bring you this podcast. So get cozy, grab your sippy cups, because we've got another great episode coming at you right now. Hi, everyone. I'm Lynn Smith, and I'm here with my co-host, Justin. Hi, Justin.
Hey, Lynn. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited about this episode because it's all about staying connected with our kids. My kids are starting to get to the age where they're having their own lives, at least a little bit more than the baby days. They're going and they're playing sports all the time. We have busy schedules. It's just jam-packed every single day. And connecting is one of the things that I feel like is falling off of our list of things that we're paying attention to. That's what really is challenging starting at this age.
100%. I'm feeling the same way because, it felt like I knew everything about my kids' lives for so long. And now I can tell that they have a little bit of their own friends, their own internal thinking. And, that's normal. We want our kids to grow up and become adults, but you still want to maintain that connection even as it's happening. Because I'm like, how was school? And their answer is fine. I'm like, I know it was more than fine. Give me the dirt. I got to know.
How do we get our kids to truly talk and connect with us? What are the right questions to ask? How do we dig deeper? That's why I'm so excited to talk with Rhea Lalla. She's an emotional intelligence counselor who's worked with the United Nations and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation schools. She has a lot of fresh ideas on how we can stay connected with our kids. Then you're going to hear a story that really left a mark on me. It's incredibly emotional, about a mother in Eastern Tennessee who gets distracted just for a moment and has a very scary close call that we can all learn from. Lots to get to, lots of information. Let's get right to it. Rhea, let's get personal. This can be tough. It's almost like it feels like a really long breakup when it comes to our kids. And as they get older, they distance themselves a little bit more from us because they have their friends and everything. Like even when my kids get home from school now, it's just like, bye, Mom, and they're going up to their rooms. How do we make sure that we continuously are connecting with our kids?
Okay, so the first thing I like to think about is just have a shared idea of what connection means, yeah? And so one of the ways that I think about connection is that I want to feel emotionally linked or bonded with somebody. So there's usually affection and understanding and empathy that's involved. You feel close to them. So the thing that I'm always wanting parents to look at is, what is the experience of you? And I don't know if we necessarily always think about what's the experience of me. What are my values? And how do I show up to those values? So there's two parts there. I think important piece, if we want to connect with our kids when they're going to school, when they come back, just optimizing for connection, is that connection needs to be something that we value. And I've noticed that a lot of times we don't really think about
we're time starved, right?
Yeah, we are time starved. We're time starved, but there's also the thinking about, so for example, there might be a dad who I coach and he tells me, if I were to ask him, what do you value? He might say, well, my partner and my children, and they're right up there. But the actions that support that aren't in place, because when he's home, he's kind of beavering away in the office, and then he gets busy on to-do lists of things that needs to be done. And so doesn't know that fun and connection is right up there with one of the values that allows the kids to come to him and get their needs met.
So what are some of the ways that we can connect that are beyond just sort of, right, our go-to is, how was your day?
Okay, so I'm going to just do one step before that, because that's a question that generally comes up if a child goes to school and you ask, how was your day? What did you do today? We normally get something like, I did nothing, or it was fine, and then the conversation drops. So let's just go back.
It's hard to connect over it was fine. Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
See you later.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So let's just have some things that are in place. For every parent that's listening today, the goal is to find a way to connect every day. Yeah. And one of the rules that I use is whenever I've separated from the kids for any length of time. So for example, the kids are going to bed. So they're leaving me. There's going to be a space of time that we're not together. I want to tie that moment with this exquisite bow. I want to punctuate that moment with something that feels really yummy. And that might be a conversation. That might be me regaling something about the day that I loved, or something that I noticed about them, or an experience that was joyful. Like, I want to make sure that it's something that's beautiful before I send them off to Dreamyland. And then when they wake up in the morning, there's another moment, because we haven't seen each other for 8 to 10 hours. My heart is connected and I'm saying, I'm so glad I get to see you this morning. Like, that energy.
I love that, because I feel like we're always we're saying, like, how was your day? And we expect the kid to sort of provide the exquisite bow, as you say. But really, like, that's a lot to put on a 5-year-old, to be like, hey, open your heart because I asked you a sort of boilerplate question, when really we're the ones that need to bring a little bit of this energy you're talking about.
Well, you brought up a really important point, which is the role of the parent is to always lead. Your job is to lead the connection. Your job is to lead the fun. Your job is to be the thing that you're trying to create. As a parent, we always want to see ourselves as the one who's leading the connection. And it doesn't matter whether they're 2 or 22. I'm looking for, how do I create fun, joy, excitement, such that rapport, such that the kids want to be around me. There's 5 things that every child wants in order to feel connected to. And if they don't get these 5 things, they will feel that there is something like a gap in their heart. Okay, so here they are.
You have my attention.
Yeah. I'm leaning in so hard right now.
Okay, so the first one is, every child on the planet wants to feel their parents' attention. Again, doesn't matter what age they are. So this is where you're giving focused, undivided attention to this child, that they feel seen and heard. There's a level of presence. I always use this example. You could take your child to the most amazing, like, I don't know, let's just use Disneyland. You can take them to Disneyland. You could take them on every ride. You could buy them everything they wanted. You could take them to whatever they wanted to eat. And when you ask them, what felt extraordinary for them, they'll tell you, do you know when we were getting out of the car and then you put your hand on my shoulder? And you're like, oh, that was it? So what I'm trying to say is that you stand in the line with them, but what's the experience of you in that line? Are you scrolling on your phone to kill the hour? Are you engaged and actively curious? So the next one is another A, it's acceptance. So that means that your child feels that you will embrace and validate who they are without any desire to change them. So let me give you an example of acceptance gone wayward, okay? So I think I'm a very accepting person. When my daughter was about 5 or 6, she loved wearing different colored socks, very Punky Brewster, for those people who remember that show.
Yeah.
Yes,
and I love, a part of me loved it, but it wasn't like it was one blue sock and one red sock that's the same. It was one long sock and one short sock with frills, like completely different. It was just a hodgepodge of everything. And I had to notice that I would start to take her clothes and lay it with the leggings and the top that all is a little bit matchy because mom's a bit square, okay? And in that kind of like subversive way that I was maneuvering this, I'm thinking I'm being sneaky weaky, but the truth is that there's a part of my daughter in her expressive, vibrant, creative, magnificent way is trying to express herself. And I'm worried about the fear of judgment instead of allowing her to go brave and do her. Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember
you're saying she's sensing that, like, rejection, that small rejection of that.
So no matter how sneaky it was, she was. But this is what happened. After about 2 weeks, she said to me, she goes, Mom, and she was only 6, she goes, I really love when you choose my clothes and everything, but I really feel when I have my tassels and my polka dots and my long and the short socks, I feel like I get that I am making such a good decision. And I feel like when you're doing that, sort of like you're pushing my face in the mud. And there was this moment where my heart stopped and tears, my eyes teared up, and I said, Sky, her name's Sky. I said, Sky, I promise you that I will never do that again.
I love that was a moment where you weren't accepting her. And then when you did, I feel like that was a huge connecting moment. Like, I feel the connection just hearing you tell the story. So I love that, because it means even if we're not doing it quite right, when you tell us, it can just doing it creates those connections.
Well, you've brought up a really good point, and this is why I say there's no bad moments in parenting. Because if you know how to go back and do an epic recovery, an epic impact of, like, speak to the impact of what your child went through, that I would say that you can actually build deeper intimacy and connection that could not have happened any other way unless you had that
right.
missing of the mark. Third one is appreciation. When you're giving your feedback and appreciation to your kids, it's at the level of who they are. So it's not the art piece that you go, that's so amazing. They go, wow, you have such a creative mind. Or you have a great use of color. Or I loved how you use the entire space there. Tell me more about that. That's the appreciation. You go a deep dive there. Okay, so that's the third. The fourth is affection. So this is the warmth, the care, the physical touch that displays emotional closeness. Now, I just want to contrast. I have two children. One is, if we were going to put them in like animal categories, one is a dog who would love to burrow, even at 17, burrow into your skin. And one of them is a little bit like
a golden retriever.
Yeah. And one of them is a little bit more kind of like a cat. Like when they hug you, you're just like, oh my gosh, they led the hug. Oh my goodness, right?
Yeah.
So here's what I know for sure though. Doesn't matter one that seems more affectionate or one that's just more easier to touch and connect with. Everybody wants it. Everybody wants a level of affection. And the fifth one is allowing. And that's where you give the space and freedom for another person to completely be themselves, to have a complete autonomy and personal growth as they, you recognize that your child is growing and that they want to go out with their friends. And we don't say something like, well, what about mom? She's here alone. Don't you want to go for a drive with mom? Right? We want to allow them to become the people that they are, to have the experience, to be the person that might even be different than who we are.
Rhea, it is so wonderful to have you. Thank you for this insightful conversation.
Thanks, Rhea.
It really was amazing.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Justin, this was such a reminder for us as parents. And I love that Rhea works with a lot of working parents. Both of us are, and a lot of our listeners. And honestly, like, even if you don't have a technical job, like being at home, that's the full-time job.
Even more full-time.
But you feel like you don't have these moments to really connect. But when you say you value them, you make the time. We all have 10, 20, 30 minutes that we can carve out. And then the effects of that are so powerful.
I totally agree. I mean, my takeaway, it's like a two-step thing. It's like, I want to make the time to actually connect with my kids. But before I do that, I need to decide I'm going to do that. And that is sort of the harder step. I feel like we're always walking in and be like, I'm going to talk to my kids. And then it's sort of like, doesn't quite land or doesn't quite feel that real connection that Rhea was talking about. It can be as simple as just asking a more specific question rather than how is school. It's like, hey, is the pet iguana in your classroom? What did they eat today? Or like you just ask that one question that gets a little bit underneath where the kid's like, oh, it ate 3 flies. I watched them eat 3 flies or whatever. And then suddenly you're just so much further along. It feels like. So much great information about connecting with our kids, but of course, I had to go further. I did a little research and found 2 interesting facts I wanted to share with you. Number 1, the most important place to stay connected, the dinner table. Makes sense. Is that true in your house, Lynn?
Of course it is. We asked the question, sort of, what was your favorite part of the day? That's the standard question that we 100%. Have every night.
Yeah. So great. But number 2 is even more interesting. Children, parents, or caregivers spending time together in silence or even running an errand or chores can create that connection. So it really is about time spent. The connecting doesn't always have to be so verbal like we sort of think it is. It can just be spending great time together.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And I think about that. Like sometimes we're just not paying attention to how much time we're spending with our children. It's such a busy day. And sometimes it's just like, take a moment and just sit together. Maybe it's just sit outside and sit on the front porch, do whatever, but it's the time well spent. Justin, what's one of the most important things in parenting?
A good diaper pail.
You know it. All of us parents do. That is why Munchkin just invented maybe the best diaper pail ever. It's Munchkin's UV diaper pail. It's the world's first smart electric diaper pail. So every time you close the lid, 4 gold LED UV lights, like the ones they use in hospitals, automatically kill up to 99% of germs on the inner lid surface. There are no chemicals, no detergents, no water, no heat. And most importantly, no odors as well. It's the perfect time to grab one for you or a friend. Just click on the link in the show description to see the UV diaper pail and get a discount. Just use the code STROLLERCOASTER. As we've learned, staying connected with our kids is important for the whole family. But this story you're about to hear is all about how losing touch with your kids in the moment can lead to some really unsettling consequences. This story is truly unforgettable. Here's our correspondent Fleece with your parenting story of the day.
Sarah Philpott is a farmer and mother of 4 in East Tennessee.
So as a mom, I consider myself to be extremely connected to my children. We live on this big sprawling farm, and our favorite thing to do is to be outside together and to play. I'm a children's book author. I'm a former teacher, so I'm kind of the epitome of the person that you would think is going to be connected with her children. It was always my dream to have kids, which leads me to one of the most concerning days of my life as a mother. It was this beautiful fall day, kind of like a golden delicious apple day, I like to call it here in East Tennessee. It was warm, it was sunshiny, and we were working with our pumpkins. So we do have a little pumpkin stand. We grow pumpkins here on our farm. My kids help sell them. And outside my door, we had pulled up our big green tractor, and it was attached to this wooden flat trailer full of pumpkins, just kind of those little miniature pumpkins that you see as decorations. And I took 2 of my children out. Sophie, she was 4 at the time, and she was just dancing on the trailer, I remember, and making castles and playing. And then my little guy, Beckham, who was just a year old, he was playing with this little golden kitty. And I decided that I was going to start moving some of the pumpkins. And I would move some pumpkins, and then I'd look up at my kids and I'd, just smile watching them play. And I'd move some more pumpkins, and then I'd watch them some more. One thing I wanted to do, I wanted to make sure they were okay and weren't falling off the trailer, but also I was just really enjoying watching their imaginations come to life.
It was an idyllic day for Sarah and her kids until the outside world got involved.
Well, it was a time in the fall that is hurricane season. And even though we live in East Tennessee, my mind was a little bit distracted, wondering what was happening in South Florida, which is where my brother and sister-in-law live. So I picked up my phone and started kind of looking at news stories, and then turned on social media to see some updates, and just kind of zoned my mind out for a few minutes, worrying about them instead of worrying about what was right in front of my eyes.
Picking up our phones when we're with our kids happens every day, but it can be a real distraction in the moments when we need to be connected with what's right in front of us.
And all of a sudden, my concern over the hurricane was broken when I heard the screaming of my daughter. And I guess my instant reaction was, oh no, they've fallen off the trailer, something's happened. But it was far worse than that. I looked, and just below the trailer, we have a goldfish pond. And I looked, and I saw that my 4-year-old daughter was clutching my 1-year-old child by his footed pajamas as he was halfway submerged in this pond. And I just started screaming and running as fast as I could. At the same time, I was so relieved that my daughter, my 4-year-old daughter, who I often bemoan for being so independent in life, but at the time when I looked at this sight, I was so thankful that she was independent and capable, because she had my little 1-year-old boy, my little Beckham, and was pulling him out of the pond.
Thankfully, her son was okay. And with him safely in her arms, Sarah's relief gave way to other feelings.
And then after that relief and that fear, I remember just having this emotion of anger well up inside of me, that I had been so worried about something that was so far away, that was so out of my control, that I wasn't focusing on what was right in front of my eyes, my children. Those were the ones who I needed to be connected with. And I realized right away that what had made me lose my connection with my kids was my phone. And how often do we hear how our phones and the social media and everything on it can have addictive qualities to it, where once we open them up, we're just going to mindlessly start scrolling, where time becomes forgotten.
It's every parent's worst nightmare, and it can happen in the blink of an eye. Sarah was lucky, and it's clearly left a mark on her life.
And that's what had happened to me. I realized that I was looking at that phone instead of looking at my children, and I just wanted to throw it. And I also realized that it's not the phone's fault. It was my fault for not being connected with them, for taking ownership in that. But I pulled them out of the little goldfish pond area, just couldn't stop crying and thanking my little girl. I said, Sophie, how did you know to save Becca? She just pulled him up. She knew what to do. And it really changed. Although before that moment, I knew that I needed to be present for them, the irony did not escape me that I was so focused on something so out of control that was far away. My mind was so fixated on that hurricane and how it was affecting my friends and family that I was not aware of what was right in front of my eyes. So my biggest takeaway of my mom is being able to stay present, because presence is, I think, the key for connecting.
A big episode for you. Thank you, as always, for being here with us. And if you have a topic you want to hear more about or any questions, just reach out to us at podcast@munchkin.com. And thank you to Rhea Lalla for a great conversation about connecting with our kids, and also Sarah Philpott for a very emotional story. Thank you, as always, to Munchkin, creators of this podcast. And you can find all of your favorite Munchkin products at munchkin.com.
And I want to remind you about our other podcast, Stroller Coaster Storytime. It's a storytelling podcast for kids and parents with great stories, improv actors, fun sound effects. It's fantastic. We just dropped a brand new episode called The Day the Peas Touched the Nuggets. We're doing real stories from our lives here, and we know what a crisis it is when those peas touch those nuggets. So please check it out. It's right here in the same feed. It's very fun.
And you can listen to it with your kids, which is always so much fun.
For sure. Yeah.
You know, one thing you might not know is that Munchkin's Wild Love product line is created to educate kids on at-risk animal species and support the International Fund for Animal Welfare. So when you support Munchkin, you support our wildlife, which is really special.
My whole family is wild for wild love. I have a giraffe cup in my cupboard right now.
Using it all
right
the
now.
time.
Yeah.
You certainly deserve some parenting peace of mind. So here it is. It is your much needed moment of calm. And this time, let's venture to the beautiful grasslands of North America, where playful prairie dogs and howling gray wolves roam. You can feel the summer breeze wind as it gently moves across a field of wildflowers. Enjoy.